Hello and welcome to Face Off here on France 24. Is being rich an achievement or a burden? Well, it is certainly a matter of debate here in France these days, and a heated one to say the least. With the socialist government planning to slap those earning over 1 million euros a year with a tax rate of 75%, and news that France's richest man had asked for Belgian citizenship, the left and the right have been at loggerheads over the issue. So is it a crime to be rich in France? To discuss the issue, Jean-Marc Gonin with Le Figaro magazine and Marc Dean with Bloomberg News. So a lot of the debate has centered around the front page of the left-leaning daily Libération the other day, addressing Bernard Arnault, who is France's richest man, and the headline says, I'll translate, "Get lost, rich bastard." And this is in reference to an insult that was launched by the former president, Nicolas Sarkozy, when he visited a fair and someone was trying to get close to him, and he said to him, "Get lost, damn bastard." And so this created a lot of reactions. Here is the one from Jean-François Copé, who is the Secretary General of the Conservative Party, the UMP, followed by Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is at the head of the leftist party.
I would like to know who is the most patriotic. Isn't it the one who creates jobs in France? We have to stop with this. Who has the right to teach this kind of lesson? This is not the real issue, and I demand that we stop subscribing to all kinds of left-wing populisms. There are some front-page headlines in newspapers that reek of left-wing populism.
I did not brand him a parasite. It's the whole elite, the high and mighty, whose only homeland is their money. So I tell Mr. Arnault, who I do not know, that when you earn 10 million euros a year, maybe there's a moment in life where you say, that's it, I've had enough, I can begin to share.
Jean-Marc Gonin.
You know, Jean-Luc Mélenchon reminds me, I was not born obviously at the time, but he reminds me of the Revolutionary Tribunal after the Bastille Day, when the French Revolution was really getting very tough. And the way he's wording, the way he talks about rich people, they are aliens. They are people, you know, the revolutionaries in the street in the 1790s were singing, "Let's hang the aristocrats." Somehow I hear the song "Let's Hang the Rich," and this is extremely French and extremely worrying. I'm not saying that the revolution didn't bring good to this country. It brought down the monarchy and brought democracy in a republic. But you know, there's a sense of hatred for that leading class that worries me a lot.
Marc Dean, do you agree that there is the sense this has focused on Bernard Arnault, who is at the head of the luxury goods empire LVMH, and who apparently is seeking a Belgian citizenship, but this clearly created a shock here in France.
It created a shock. I mean, look, I think it's fair to say that the French have a very particular view and relationship to money, and there's a lot of hypocrisy involved because, you know, France is also a very bourgeois society and people like their material benefits. But you know, it's a very different culture when it comes to money than most other countries. Let's first talk about the Libé headline, front page headline, you know, big words, quite violent, as Bernard Arnault said after the fact.
They more or less apologized the next day, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that they apologized after being threatened with a lawsuit, but, you know, also I think that it's important to say, you know, there is something, you know, Libé's headline probably reflected the feeling of a lot of French people, which has as much to do with patriotism as with money. And let's, you know, Arnault said, you know, Arnault is looking to possibly change nationality, possibly have a second nationality. And I think even in America, you know, if you were someone to say, well, you know, I'm leaving the country for tax reasons, well, you know, Americans wouldn't say, well, great. You know, they'd say, well, you know, you want to leave, you don't want to be American, go on. And
although there was, if I may interrupt, there was such a reaction when one of the founders of Facebook decided to go to Brazil and change his citizenship. There was also some criticism in the United States.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. You know, there's criticism and people are patriotic and they think, well, you know, if you don't want to be French, get lost, you don't, this country is bigger than you are, sort of thing. So I think that part of it is understandable, To the other side, what Jean-François Copé was saying, what François Fillon is saying, what essentially the right is saying is also legitimate. I mean, we do in France have a problem with the people who actually generate wealth and generate all the tax revenue that the country needs. And the 75% tax that the François Hollande's government intends to implement is a concern in that sense.
Well, the problem with Libé is that they didn't bring in their stories what Arnaud said in the very beginning. That is not evading, is not changing his nationality for tax reasons, but to make an alliance with Albert Frère, one of the main Belgian groups, and for legal reasons. There might be some tax reasons in the package, but it's not the main reason. And then
was it a political move because he did not agree with the tax that will be imposed on the rich by the socialist government?
I really don't think so. It was not. I think the timing was absolutely disastrous, and
but not intended.
But I don't think it was, because the first time I heard that he was going to take the Belgian nationality was earlier on in the year, and the story didn't make a noise. So it's really the time and the agenda that provoked the whole debate. On the one hand, the other thing is, I mean, when Libération attacks so frontally and with insults such a towering figure of French business, it is very unpatriotic in the sense that I thank God for the French economy that we have the luxury branch in our country, because it's one of the most profitable that brings a lot of money and jobs to this country. When you look around you in Paris, how many people come just to visit the stores of the brands that are part of his group. I mean, this is one of the main touristic attractions of this country, and that millions of people come to France, these Chinese, Russian, etc. They come to buy that stuff. I mean, and this is also very patriotic, and I hope Monsieur Arnaud doesn't go away, or whatever the wording is in English, as Libé was wishing him to do.
But it raises the question of the role played by the socialist government and the president. He had said several years ago that, I quote him, he did not like rich people. He corrected it during the campaign, said it was maybe a hasty statement, but there is this idea that he wants to tax the super rich with 75% rate. Do you think that played a role, and maybe that he won the election because he used that weapon?
This measure is supremely political. It's here we are all week. France has been talking about Bernard Arnault and the 75% tax, which I don't want to say is totally marginal, but if this whole incident hadn't happened, and this is where the timing is sort of politically disastrous or advantageous, depending on your point of view. If that hadn't happened, we would have been talking today about, François Hollande cutting the budget, pushing the unions to have increased labor flexibility. So this is really, frankly, a nice tactical positioning for François Hollande. This is why he did it in the election, because he knew that French people would react this way.
You won him the election.
And it did definitely help. And, this is a purely populist measure which covers François Hollande, helps cover François Hollande on his left flank, when, with the people the Mélenchon voters, the unions, all these people, when they're going to complain about François Hollande now, you can say, well, look, I'm putting a 75% tax on millionaires.
Yes,
so this is red meat.
This is red meat, yes, and we shouldn't forget that during the campaign, when that word came out, I don't like the rich, I will tax them, you had in the background the so-called Bettencourt affair, another immensely rich person, Madame Bettencourt, heir of the very wealthy group L'Oréal Cosmetics, and justice is looking into the wealth of that lady because she has been apparently sponsoring politics, especially maybe Nicolas Sarkozy with illegal methods. And through the inquiries of the justice, they discovered that part of that money has fled to Switzerland, etc., etc. So the spotlight was on these very wealthy persons already. And then on the top of it comes Bernard Arnault. So it's red meat for the socialist, yes.
But do you think it's a little bit dangerous? Because the socialists also need to work with the business community to make sure their program will help boost the French economy.
Look, there's no question that economically this is not a good measure. François Hollande actually said during the campaign, I don't care if this doesn't raise one penny for the French treasury. I want it anyway because it's symbolically important. Well, that's nice politically, but it doesn't make good economic sense. I've talked to tax lawyers this week who have said, we have, in fact, I talked to one tax lawyer who said, I have clients who are applying for Belgian nationality just out of precautionary measures. And these clients are, you can bet, clients who are wealthy, who are business people, who pay a lot of taxes. Even in the UK, when they raised the tax rate, the highest marginal tax rate to 50%, even then they were talking about people fleeing the country. And when you raise it to 75%, talk to off the record to anyone who works in a major multinational, in a bank, these people are looking at moving to London or New York because they think it's not fair to pay 75% tax. You and I, who don't earn €1 million a year, are going to pay more tax as a result.
Right. Isn't this, though, touching a nerve? Because there is this notion that more and more people are unemployed, not earning a lot, and at the same time, some at the very high level continue to earn much more, and that inequalities are rising, and therefore people are upset. And
well, of course, this is the French version. You can observe that in Britain. You can observe that in America. The debate runs high everywhere because in all these countries,
Warren Buffett is saying he's not taxed enough.
Yes, and the middle class is suffering, whereas you have extremely high revenues that are still increasing, and especially after the financial crisis, and even the Romney syndrome is part of that. But the way France reacts is very special, again, because there is still a sort of a revolutionary soil underneath the political debate in this country, and it comes out very violently. People have an egalitarian mind in this country that harms this is my opinion, that harms very much the entrepreneur spirit in this country, because you fear to get, making money is not well seen in this country.
Quickly,
Marc. I would call it a sort of naivety, particularly on the left, about the extent to which you can eliminate inequalities. There are inequalities in all societies, but if you look at the OECD figures, inequality is about the least in France among industrialized countries, along with Scandinavia.
So you think the left is naive, or maybe a little bit cynical on this issue?
Well, this government also wants to eliminate prostitution. I think that says it all.
They're not facing reality, and what you are saying, Marc, is also a reality that inequalities are run very high in this country, although everybody thinks here that we are in a fantastically equal society, and it's not the case at all.
Okay, thank you very much to both of you. We'll see how the rich fare in France and how the Bernard Arnault saga will end up. Thank you very much for watching this edition of Face Off here on France 24.